Welcome to Kim and Angela Talk. Kim is a biodynamic craniosacral therapist, PSYCH-K facilitator, curious human, forever student, and a loving mum. Angela is a Reiki master, PSYCH-K facilitator, metaphysical nerd, compulsive learner, and childless cat lady. Come along for the ride as they explore the mysteries of the universe and their own lives, all while enjoying a good laugh together.
Hi, I'm Angela.
And I'm Kim.
And together we're Kim and Angela Talk. Hi, Kim.
Hi, Angela. Hi, audience.
Hi, audience. How are you?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing today, Angela?
I'm doing much better.
Excellent. That's what we want to hear.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been a day.
Been a day?
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm glad it's going better. So are we excited today about our theme, our theme?
Well, I don't know, Kim. Why don't you refresh my memory as to what that theme is?
All right. Well, today's theme comes from the lovely deck, which maybe one day we'll do a little deck.
Oh, that's a great deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely should do that one.
Funny enough, the card that came out was the one that's on the cover.
Oh, nice.
Kind of cool. Ooh, spooky portals. And so the theme for today, according to the card, talks about our third eye activation, but in getting a more pinpointed theme to that is really, stopping questioning the fact that we have the divine ability to see. And when I asked for kind of a clarification on the theme, the other card that came up was one of my tarot deck, which was the Seven of Cups, which, it's kind of like head in the clouds, lots of decisions, lots of a lot of thoughts rolling around. And
I don't know what that is like at all. I still can't resonate with that.
Yeah, any of us these days, as far as being overwhelmed with thoughts and information and fake information and real information. And we talked about this, I think, on the last podcast, and it definitely seems to be resonating once again relative to all that. And so my message card that came to me, so I have the first one, and we'll do the audience one later once we've done your card. But my card comes out of kind of a little interesting deck, which came to me. It was kind of part and parcel with a lot of other decks that kind of came as a group. And it was just like a little gift thing. It's definitely not a card deck that comes up often. But it was a very simple message within the deck. And it was basically, to trust. Answers will come and be received because your higher self, you're connected to your higher self at all times and knows what's best for you. So, relative to the third eye and, divine information and using our intuition and, trusting that we're always connected to our higher self or soul self, if you want to talk about it that way. We just kind of need to be able to listen through all of the noise. And so that'll tie in with like the audience message at the end. But I think it's important to remember that our inner guidance and our inner self is really what we need to be listening to, and that we can easily get distracted by so many things in the outside world. We were discussing before, going down the rabbit hole, even of just exercise videos that pop up on our feed and going, oh, I should be doing that. And then you come across another one and it's like, oh, I should be doing that because that's good for stretching this, or as a cardio video, and some saying, oh, don't do cardio because for women that's not, key thing. And so all this kind of different information, and then you're like, at the end of it, it's like, I don't even know what to do. So you kind of like freeze frame because it's like too much. So yeah, always kind of coming back to your inner guidance and intuition for things and kind of what feels right. And maybe sometimes you need to try different things before you kind of hone in on what's right for you. And just because it's right for someone else doesn't mean it's necessarily good for you, and vice versa. So we shouldn't be preaching to others about what they should be doing, maybe.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned exercise actually, because I recently started doing the Legree method and I was intimidated by it because it's apparently like Pilates plus.
Mm.
I don't really know anything about Pilates, and all my exercise has really, been kind of like whatever I can do and not necessarily what would you call consistent.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I'm at this point where I really need to do something, especially strength training, because of I'm hypermobile and my joints and stuff. And so I was looking around for something, and my massage therapist had suggested Pilates. So I was looking for that, and those two options really didn't pan out, or like one person didn't contact me, the other person has their own stuff going on and wasn't able to meet me as soon as I wanted to do it. And so the third option that came up was the Legree method,
Hmm.
which was developed by a Pilates instructor. So I took the plunge, even though people were like, who I talked to about it before, who had done it, they're like, "Oh, it's so intense. You're gonna want to kill yourself afterwards." And da 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 da. I'm like, this is from somebody who is like fit
Oh gosh.
and 20
Oh
years
gosh.
younger than me.
Oh
Like
no.
literally, like it was just her birthday, and I was like, "Oh, when you were born, I was partying and getting wasted in Olympia."
Oh no.
Like in my early 20s.
Right, right, right.
So,
That's
and
so
like
funny.
she's totally beautiful Amazon, like she's taller than I am even, and
Oh,
and
wow.
just incredibly fit and stuff. And she was like telling me how intense it was. I was like, "Oh shit, what am I getting myself
Oh,
into?"
I think
But
I'll
I did.
run the other direction myself, but that'd be enough to dissuade me.
I know, but I was like, well, I'm still going to listen to my inner guidance, because that's what when I thought about it, and I was like, oh, okay, no, I can do this. I'm good. I know how I will approach it. I will approach it at a pace that's right for me,
Mhm.
and not try to, can't, how do you say, stay up with like, people in a class
Right.
who are fit and who are doing these things. So I'll start with private lessons so I can get there
Yeah.
before I can get to a class, and then I'll know what my limits are, and like really be able to get more in touch with my body, and like
Yeah.
because as you know, like when people have suffered a lot of trauma in their lives, a lot of times part of that is dissociation from the body.
Mhm.
And it's funny because like I was like, I know I've been getting better about that. I have more body awareness now than I did, like, say, before we did the Biodynamic Craniosacral Therapy course together,
Yeah.
but not to the extent that most people have, or at least anybody who does a lot of body work on themselves.
Mhm.
And so I was like, I'm going to do this at the pace that's right for me, listen to my guidance and my voice. So I
Good.
just thought that was really interesting how you mentioned the exercise videos and stuff.
Mhm.
So, and I had my first lesson. It was intense for sure, but at the same time, doable. And so I'm going to start again. Second one's tomorrow.
Oh,
Yay.
congratulations on that. That's awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. But yeah, like a lot of the things about what you were saying is being connected to your higher self and being listen to our guidance. It can be really difficult, and a lot of people kind of shun that.
Mhm.
And in the realm that we work in with a lot of our friends, it's like there's still a lot of doubt around that.
Mhm.
We have that conversation actually quite frequently with
Yeah.
friends, and I did a whole like two courses with Samantha, specifically so I could get over that doubt about listening to my higher self. And
Right.
then things still come up.
Yeah. Well, I think it's kind of one of those things that we go up and down. I think that's what we've noticed in our group is that, you might have days you're extremely confident, you're going for it and things are over, and then you dive bomb a little bit and have doubt. And then thankfully things show up to regain that confidence, or just talking with one another that, we regain and refocus. And, yeah, it's just kind of to allow the ebbs and flows and get rid of all the extra energies that no longer serve to do with doubt and stuff. But it is a process like anything else that we do. Yeah, and things will come up to show us that there still might be some things there that we need to work on, and that's okay, right?
Yeah, and one of the things that I really love about being able to talk with our friends about this stuff is kind of having that shared experience and then that connectedness, which actually leads me into my message. Funny
Conveniently.
how that works. My message is from my Ganesha deck. Here I have it
Aw.
here, and you'll also notice I've got Lord Ganesha here.
Aw,
His
awesome.
dancing pose is made a serpentine. I've had this statue for like crazy amount of time, over 20 years.
Nice.
I love Ganesha. He's one of my favorite deities, and
Love the card.
there he is. Yeah, number 41, belonging. And you'll see he is writing on his mouse. And this symbolizes his triumph over the ego. Because in Hinduism, the mouse, and in the Hindu culture, the mouse symbolizes the ego. For the ego can eat away at everything that is good and decent in a person.
Okay.
And so that's him triumphing. And besides the fact, they are cute and whatever, but yeah,
Mhm.
they can be little destructive little buggers,
Yeah.
as in the ego, even no matter how cute you are.
Right.
Just kidding. So that's him. And and this is my deck, Whispers of Lord Ganesha.
Oh,
So
nice.
I really do love this deck. It comes up as was one of my first Oracle decks, actually.
Oh, cool.
And so in this card for me, it was like, transcending the ego is about so the ego transcending, that's like transcending their perception of being separate, because the ego doesn't really understand its connection to other people's or its connection to source. The ego is like, it's all about me. I am one, I am a unit, and I have no connection to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at what's going on in the world today, that's clearly an issue in our society.
Mm-hmm.
And so this card and this message is basically, it says learn to find security from within, or like, or it's belonging, but part of it is learn to find security within from within. But it's also, you can do that in community with others. By belonging with others, you develop your own ability to love, connect and bond, and you have these shared experience of care with others.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see yourself reflected back from the eyes of others. Like, you can see yourself more clearly when you're in community with others, and that can be in a positive way to see your shadow self as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because if
Definitely.
because just because you're in a community with someone doesn't mean you're friends with everybody. And like, some of those people, the ones that you're not friends with, or they're your teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a way to see your shadow self, to see what you don't like about yourself, to see what in your own self that you want to improve, or to I guess transcend in a lot of ways, because it's not like you're getting rid of something, it's more like you're transforming it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You transform your shadow into light, and you can do that. And this card is saying you being part of community is part of that. And let me see. Oh, and also part of this card was also to learn to trust and ask for help and to rely on others, which is something that we do with each other. In fact, we did earlier.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And also within our group that we have, that we meet with every couple weeks. It's one of the things that we do is we kind of share our experiences. We do exchanges with each other, and what I find really so beneficial about that is, like, it really does, when you're working with somebody else, even if it's a modality that you're able to uncover shadow aspects that maybe you can't get to on your own.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And then sometimes you can't, you may then have to pull back and work on it more deeply by yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But kind of uncovering it sometimes is really helpful with another person.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things. Again, we've talked about it before. It's that blind spot, right? We don't know what we don't know because we don't know. So, how do you know? But that's why it is great working with someone who may see it, because others tend to see things in us that we either choose not to see or are just blind to. And so, to have a supportive, gifted bunch of people that you trust and are able to work with in uncovering that, so that you don't kind of go, too much if it's delivered kind of in a nice gentle way, which it is in our group. It makes it easier to kind of sit with and kind of do a little bit of pondering. And I was going to say, like in the gene keys, where you kind of like, what's the word they use? There's a particular word where you just, you take a pause and you,
Contemplation or
you contemplate. So I think that's kind of a process part of it, because it's probably, if it's something that you've either pushed away or kind of cut off from yourself, or that you didn't know and it could catch you by surprise, then sometimes you need to have some space with it and some time to contemplate, so that you can kind of even just allow it to come into your consciousness of like, okay, where are we going to, go with this, before you kind of delve into where it came from, what we need to do as far as transforming it, transmuting it, whatever, into something that maybe would be more palatable, or to change, depending on what comes up. But yeah, you do kind of sometimes need that little bit of pause with it, because sometimes our ego, as mentioned before, is kind of like, what are you talking about? And that's not part of me. And here's the hand, so, which of course doesn't do anybody any good as far as, so yeah. So interesting how that's,
yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the gene keys, because we both done our like explored our gene keys. I went through my activation sequence, and I started doing the Venus sequence, which is another whole ball of wax. But like the second sphere in the activation sequence is your spheres of evolution. And from the spheres, they have these lines. And my line from the sphere of evolution is line 4, which is love and community. And that's about finding a balance to being alone and being with others. And it's the theme of love, of being with friends, and love of one's own company, and I definitely have lean towards the hermit. Like, I do love my friends and I do love being in company, but sometimes there are times when I really just want to be alone, and I joke that like, oh yeah, I could totally, put me in a prison in solitaire. I got no problem. I could do that way easier than being with a whole bunch of people. I could be that hermit in the cave, because, and it's not necessarily just love of one's own company, but being able, part of it is just being so comfortable in that, like that sense of aloneness. Cause then it's like, you don't have to worry about anybody else. You're just about your own going through whatever you're going through, without having to like really think too much about other people. Because when when you care for other people, I mean, that leads often to pain and suffering in a different way, for various reasons. And so being able to accept everything that comes with community, comes with friendship and love, is like, it's both the good and the bad of that. There's joy and sorrow that comes with community. And being able to, I guess, kind of really accept that and own that, and be okay with all of that. But also at the same time be okay with being alone, and never really feeling like being alone, but not lonely. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so yeah, that was like, when I saw this, I was like, wait a second, because it was talking about both about, with the card, both about, belonging, but also being reliant on yourself, and not relying on other people for your own opinion of yourself or approval of others. But also being good with, like, kind of like, so being good with being alone, as well as being good with community, and kind of, so learn to find the security within, but also have that expression of belonging and connectedness to everyone else and everything else, which is something that we talk about a lot. The oneness of all, the connected, how we are all connected in so many not just energetically, but like in so many various ways in our society and our culture.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a small world. Yeah, it doesn't take too many degrees of separation to kind of see, just like you said, how connected we are.
Oh, I'm 2 degrees from Kevin Bacon.
Oh, nice. Wow.
If anybody knows about the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, I'm 2 degrees because his son went to the college that I worked at.
Oh,
and I checked equipment out to him at Media Loan.
how cool is that? There you go.
I got
Wow.
2 degrees from Matt Groening because his nephew was one of my animation students.
Wow.
And Matt Groening, for those of you who don't know, is the creator of The Simpsons, which is the longest running animated show, I believe, in television.
Cool. Very cool. So see, small world, because you
Yeah,
never know who knows who around, and yeah.
never got to meet either one of them, but that's okay.
That's
So
okay
that's
though.
only 2 degrees.
It's so close. It's so close.
It's all good.
Yeah.
I actually really wanted to meet Craig Bartlett, Matt Groening's nephew's father, because he's another animator, and like I just loved his work. Like I would show his work when I taught animation.
Oh, cool. Very
So
cool.
anyway,
You never know.
so yeah, there's all sorts of weird connectedness out there, and then you just kind of like you always sort of because of this connectedness both to everything and everyone and to source, you always find the people that you need
Mm-hmm.
in your life, and even if you think it's like someone who you don't really want to be connected to, there's a reason they've come into your sphere. There's a reason they've come into your life. They're a teacher in a different way than say a teacher like you and I are teachers for each other. There's definitely love between us and friendship and all this other wonderful stuff. But then there's those teachers where we're like, really?
What? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I really needed to learn this lesson like this.
They're just showing you something. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's all good.
Mm-hmm. Again, you just have to sit and contemplate what those lessons are so you can hopefully learn them and then don't have to deal with that anymore.
Yeah, and contemplation's an awesome thing. It's one of the things I really like about Gene Keys because, yes, there's meditation where you're, quieting the mind and all this stuff and like, trying not to have thoughts. And that can be extremely difficult for a lot of people. It's still, I'm still sometimes a lot of times when I'm trying to get into that field of like, mindset and that spaceness, you have the thoughts come in and then it's like, okay, bless and release. And it's like, okay, would you stop coming into my mind? I'm trying to meditate here,
Yeah.
But the life,
Thank you.
The nice thing about contemplation is like, it's kind of like a slow thinking.
Yeah, just kind of with intention, allowing the thoughts to come out, right?
Yeah. And so in Gene Keys, you're contemplating your spheres and your lines and, which is all about kind of revealing aspects of yourself and having a better understanding of yourself and as you were, as you are, and as you could be.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, and then also when you get into Venus sequence, how you are also relate to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And there's definitely different ways of approaching it, but contemplation is a really nice way to do it. And one of the ways I like to, when I'm outside in nature, like sitting somewhere, like that's where I really like to get into my contemplative mode of like zoning in with all the trees and like if I'm down by the lake or anything, get into that mode and just contemplate whatever's on my mind at the time or whatever reason I felt the need to go on a walk,
right.
Which I think kind of leads us to
our audience message today. Very nice lead in. I like how you did that. All right. Well, our audience card today comes.
I'm getting skill.
Ooh, I know. It's just flowing. Came from this deck today.
Oh, I love that deck.
Yeah, messages from our animal spirit guides. So the card that came up today was this one, a little kiwi.
Aww.
Love little kiwis.
Nice.
And yeah.
Walking meditation.
A walking meditation. So basically the message was to do a walking meditation and walking with awareness and with intention is a form of meditation that you can do. So you don't just need to sit and try and quiet the mind. If it happens to be one of those very, like we said in the beginning, very thoughtful thoughts everywhere and not able to hear anything going on inner wise, and to just, go outside and just try and intentionally walk and allow kind of whatever happens to come your way to come your way. And a good way to do that is to slow down your pace intentionally, to really make the walk extra slow, not to look too weird, I guess, but a little bit extra slower than what you would usually walk, or to speed up your walk a little bit, see how that feels different to you. And then also to be aware of the trees around, the flowers around. I like to kind of make sure that I'm taking in the smells of the different flowers that happen to be in bloom, and then kind of trying to investigate where they're coming from, because sometimes it's like a very lovely floral smell that you go up to a tree and then you smell it and it's like, oh, that wasn't it. Definitely wasn't it, because that flower doesn't smell very great. So, just experiment with kind of appreciating what's going on around you. And just it's kind of embodying things with, even feeling how your feet are connecting with the ground. Are you, walking and there's more pressure kind of on the outsides of your feet or on the insides of your feet? Are you walking toe first? Are you walking, heel first? And are you walking lightly? Are you walking heavy? Are you bouncy when you walk? Are you heavy when you walk? And just kind of paying attention to all those things, and then go back to also your breath too as you're walking. Like if you pick up the pace, make sure you're doing very conscious breathing as you're doing that. So deep inhales, deep exhales. And, that really kind of brings you back to the rhythms of your body and becoming more embodied by doing that, because we tend to be so in our thoughts and potentially in our ego of just kind of what's happening in my life, and not really so much about around us. I always feel very badly when, not everyone, I'm going to say probably majority of people are okay, but I always feel bad if people are out walking their dog and they're on their phones at the same time. And, it's just like the dog is, and then they're not paying attention. The dog wants to stop and smell, and they're just kind of like, oh, come on, we got to get going. And, kind of rushing that whole process when, for the dog, this outing is not even just about exercise for them. It's really about the smells. They really want to get into that grass and they want to see who's been there. And for them, that's kind of their whole world of how they identify things around themselves. And it's really great for their brains to have that kind of stimulation. It's not just exercise and to do your business. And so to, take things from a dog's point of view, to slow down, smell things, just chill. Don't be rushed. Don't, we're always destination, starting point A, going to end point B. We got to get somewhere. We got to get back home or whatever it is. But to just really go out without an intention of like where and when, that it's more just a meandering, almost again, like a walking contemplation of yourself, in the space of outside. And, just really bring it back to you. It really becomes about connecting in with yourself again, which again is also something we go over and over again, because it really is important, particularly now in this crazy AI, overdose of our phones and overdose of
artificialness
and just constant continual barrage of information. We just don't realize how affected we are by it all, and just how much, we keep getting in. There's information everywhere you walk. It's advertisements for one thing, or somebody trying to get your attention for something else. And, so it really is just an exercise in trying to calm that down for our nervous system, even not even for our thoughts, but just literally to be able to bring it back to yourself, that your nervous system can calm down and just like not have to be alert to everything all around it, that it can just be centered. So doing a little meditation is a good idea.
Yeah, and definitely. Actually, walking and moving meditations are, in a lot of ways, my favorite way to do it, because you do have to be aware of your body and your surroundings, but you're also really aware of yourself in relationship to everything. Because you mentioned, and I see that with people walking their dogs as well, but like also I see that with people walking their babies in strollers. And you'll notice that the grandparents who walk their babies, of their grandbabies, they are present.
Mm-hmm.
They're walking their, they want to be with that child and have that relationship and like, so yeah, they're getting exercise and have the babies getting air or whatever. I mean, they're in a stroller, so I don't know what they do. So I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not really my realm of expertise, but when I see people walking their babies when they're on their phone and stuff, I'm like, really? I mean, that in a way, and that's kind of like, shouldn't you be like making eye contact with your baby? Shouldn't you kind of be engaging with them and present with them? And also just because it's like really being aware of your surroundings when you're with your child is,
Yeah.
I think, kind of important, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I just wish people, and I mean, I'm going to say myself included because I'm guilty of that too at times with the phone. But if you put it in the context of the time that it robs of
Yeah.
you and the things that you miss as a result of it, and like, does it really give you the benefits of what it is you lose out on? And like you said, time with your child is like, it's such a fleeting, it's done in a flash, and at the end of the day, is the Facebook or the reel that you're watching or the news that, like, there's always a reason to be what it is that you want to watch, but yeah, it's just kind of revisiting what that device and what the distractions that we get distracted with for one reason or another, what it robs us of in the moment, which is
Yeah.
really all we have. And precious moments are, you can't get them back. So it's, yeah.
And there's just also definitely something for having mindfulness, not just for that, but for even like daily chores. Like, one of the, I love audiobooks. It's one of the reasons, like, are the ways that I can actually like clean and like do a really good job, thorough job cleaning the house or whatever. But sometimes I don't have anything on and I do the dishes in silence. So as a practice of mindfulness,
Mm-hmm.
being really, really present in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the greatest mindfulness activities I feel like is doing that with when you're sorting beans, like, when you have dried beans and you have to pick the stones out.
Mm-hmm.
That is, in a way, a really interesting meditation because you're focusing on something,
Mm-hmm.
you're doing something practical,
Mm-hmm.
but like it's really, you can really get into this zone of just like clear-headedness and finding the stones, like especially like lentils where it's kind of hard to tell
Right.
sometimes,
Right. Yeah.
and if you approach these kind of daily and now I'm not saying you have to do it for like all day or whatever, but for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 3 minutes of just silent mindfulness of a chore
Mm-hmm.
can be actually really huge and meaningful as well.
Yeah.
And also when you were talking about walking in the woods or walking your dogs, I was thinking probably like 20 years ago or so, I read this novella called The Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner, and it still sticks with me. And it was about a young man who got into trouble. It was set in England, and he was sent to their juvenile detention facility type stuff. And like and somebody got him into long distance running. And I'm not a runner myself, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
um, but the way they talk about the long distance running and getting into this rhythm and where you're really just there with your own thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
There's and like this is like before iPods, because like I'll see people running, I'll see people walking in the woods, listening to music or whatever on their iPods, or running in the woods or running around when everyone's they're plugged in to something,
Mm-hmm.
but the value, this book is just so beautiful in this way. I mean, because I've read a lot of books, but like this, and I only read this book once, and it still sticks with me. This like sense of peace that this young man achieved by these going on these runs where you hit your stride and you're just alone with your thoughts and like really coming to know himself
Mm-hmm.
in the process of this book. I really actually should read this again. It's
Yeah.
a really lovely.
That sounds.
Highly recommend it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's like you can't hide from yourself, right? When you're in the zone, it's like you're there meeting yourself. Hey, how's it going?
Yeah. Whereas when you're plugged into a device or something, it's just a distraction. You're not really being aware of your body. You're not being aware of yourself or your thoughts. And it's certainly not giving you the opportunity, unless perhaps maybe you're listening to a meditation thing,
Hmm. Hmm.
that's possible. But like really, it's like our world is just so full of distractions,
Yeah.
and so much to take you away from yourself, to really cut you off from that sense of connectedness
Hmm.
to other people. Because, like, yes, we have the world news 24/7, blah blah blah,
Hmm.
but doesn't engender like any kind of feeling of connectedness to these other people. It gives you horror and anger and like fear, lots of fear,
Hmm.
but not a sense of connectedness. They don't talk about things that like help you to realize, "Oh, wait, we're all of this stuff is affecting everything and all of us together." If we had more of this idea, or if people even just a little bit, not they don't have to believe that, like, to the same level of quantum entanglement and,
Hmm.
blah blah butterfly effect or whatever, but just this idea that everything that we do has an impact on our world, and there's this huge this connectedness of being, we would live in a completely different world right now, where people would be always raising each other up instead of tearing each
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
Where our resources would be reserved,
Hmm.
or conserved, where we wouldn't be thinking, oh yeah, Key West totally will be underwater in a few years, Miami already sinking. Well, it's not sinking, the water's rising.
Right. Yeah, just not high enough. Well, it's so funny. Not funny, but to see. I was having a discussion with someone, just talking about like how we're all on one planet, and how everything, it doesn't take much where something's affecting in another. Talking about like the wildfires that are going on in the prairies, and how, you know, obviously the smoke travels, and then the air quality of provinces that are way far away, and even down into the States, I believe I was seeing on the news. And, it's such a huge distance. Like, it's such a huge distance, but it's having an impact for
Yeah.
people's just breath, like, literally air. And then I've seen other things to do with, sandstorms that happen every year, that, the sand and the dust and what have you, and how it travels because of like when you look at the air currents and whatever, right? Like, it's not like one guy's doing one thing and it doesn't affect another guy. Like, it's all together. Same thing happens with the water, right? Because the water evaporates, it goes into a cloud, the cloud goes over, it goes, like, everything's moving every which way, but it's all part of the same thing. It's kind of like compartmentalizing us into different, it's not, it's a whole, it's very much holistic. And so it's, the globe, us on the globe, us part of it, part of the earth. It is all interconnected, even if you just do it on a purely physical level, not metaphysical, not energetic, whatever. We're connected,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think it's important for people to kind of have that as a thought in their head. Take care of your little microcosm,
Yeah.
but also be aware of the macro that also, is part of that as well. Like, it's not just you and your little, but it is important to do your own, and to, have your positive vibes, do your positive things for the environment as best you can, and be conscious of that. But, also be aware that everybody's got to do their own part. It's not
Yeah.
just,
Yeah, I mean, it's like one of the things I was thinking about when you were talking about that is like, you can do your best to, say, avoid plastic, but microplastics are everywhere. And
mhm.
no matter what, they're probably in your body right now. Not to freak anybody out, but yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It's really, I mean, it's kind of thing where like they talk about like, bacteria or bugs in your eyelashes or whatever. And people
Mhm.
get all freaked out. It's like, dude, they've been there all along.
Right.
Like,
It's not like
you know,
this is new.
right. But like the microplastics are different. That's a new thing. And the fact is like apparently they're in the airstream or something crazy, and like you just can't avoid them. And so that's one of the ways that we're all connected. That is not great,
Mhm.
but we can't avoid that. So again, like you were saying, being aware of your own actions and how that affects everyone else. Like, yeah, your microcosm, expands out into the macrocosm.
Mhm.
Like everything you do within your microcosm has a ripple effect into the macrocosm. So,
Yeah. Yeah, 'cause
yeah,
if everybody says, "Oh, it doesn't matter. I just this one whatever." Well, if everybody just does the one whatever, then it's like, you
yeah,
just have to take a nice trip to a garbage dump. And I did that a few years back when we were moving, and boy, oh boy, it's like you can't even imagine. Like we just think, "Oh, well, we have our garbage bag full and we put it out every 2 weeks and whatever." But multiply that by like every person on your street, and multiply that by your community, your town, your city, multiply that by everybody who lives in an apartment building or a condo, and it's just like you just makes your head want to explode.
yeah.
So really thinking about things as best you can and try to minimize your impact, your footprint, and go on an adventure to discover new ways of doing that, and see what resonates for you and what really actually makes an impact. Because I also know that there's also things that don't get recycled, and stuff that we think do, and or might end up in another country, which, not my problem, but it's somebody's problem in somebody's country. So get informed as best you can, and try and do
Well,
the best you can.
yeah. I mean, honestly, speaking of that, I don't know about Canada, but like China, who used to buy a lot of our recycling, stopped buying Washington State's recycling
Hmm.
because they were tired of people who put dirty diapers in the recycling and stuff like that. And like other just clearly garbage to taint recycling because they would have to go through and sift all this, and then it like no longer became cost effective. It's not even like they're grossed out by it, and it's gross,
Mhm.
and it's like, come on, people. Um, but it was no longer cost effective for them to do the recycling because they had to spend so much time
Right.
sorting out obvious garbage
Mhm.
that had been put in recycling. And it's like, and it doesn't take much effort to properly recycle.
Mhm.
Put your garbage in garbage, to rinse out your cans, make sure that you're not putting dirty stuff in there. And I was talking to a friend of ours who actually is very involved in the recycling industry. And I was like, why don't people understand you have to clean your recycling? He's like, I know. It's like, that shit molds. He didn't say it quite like that. He was nicer about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like mold, people, and it's besides like grease and all the other stuff. So yeah, it's frustrating because it's so easy.
Yeah.
It really doesn't take that much if everybody just did a little bit better, just did better.
Yeah, it's funny. One thing I always think when I put something in the recycle to really wash it out well, I'm always thinking, oh my gosh, if it's too tantalizing, if there's food left in it for like any kind of animal, and
Mhm.
I don't care if it's a small one or a big one, getting their head stuck, trying to get at food. So that's where my clean it really well comes from, because I just, oh my goodness. Yeah, I just,
Yeah, and oh my god, there's tons of videos of little hedgehogs in England getting stuck in like yogurt cups or stuff like that,
yeah.
because
Well,
of
or raccoons, or yeah, like yeah,
um,
and I mean, you don't know too, like where it goes, if it's piled somewhere that something else or a bird could get there. Like you just don't know, so you just kind of, that's for me, that's my biggest. I mean, obviously, it needs to be clean to be recycled too, but I'm always
mhm.
thinking of that. If it's too tempting to whatever might get its head stuck, that would just be like, I don't want to even think about it, because
Yeah,
that's not fun. So yeah, so there's lots of reasons to be more responsible and to do it right, and to educate yourself on the best ways to do it if you don't know.
yeah.
But yeah.
Well, the thing is like our resources are not infinite.
No. And well, like I said, people, I don't know if people don't like think about it. Like when you put the bag of trash out, where it goes, it just kind of like poof dematerializes.
Yeah.
It's like if you go to the dump, you just go, oh my gosh. Like,
Mhm.
and the pop, yeah, it doesn't,
Yeah.
it doesn't sit well when you actually see where it's
Oh, yeah.
the level
I'm thinking,
amount. It's
yeah. There's a landfill along the route from when you drive into Canada when you're going to Tawasin to go to Vancouver Island and stuff. You drive by a landfill and it's massive.
it's
And
terrible.
then in here going to we have like little transfer stations, and the last time I was there, we were getting rid of stuff from a friend who had passed. She was older and, in her 80s and stuff. And we did as much as we could. I took so much to like the Union Mission thingy. I don't know. Someone who works more directly with the unhoused population. And, as much as we could, but we had to take stuff to the dump. And and it was legitimately garbage. It was not stuff that we could give to Goodwill or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like watching someone across the way throw out stuff that was clearly usable, like in good condition.
Mm.
Like somebody could have used that. Like you could put a thing, like whenever I have to get rid of something that I don't want to move, I'm like free in Craigslist.
Yeah.
I've gotten rid of so many mattresses for free because this dude would come, and like his whole thing was to get mattresses and other stuff like that. And he actually would ship them back to his country in Africa where for other people to use, where it was like,
Yeah.
because he would do big containers because that was cheaper for them and it was more cost effective. He was telling me the whole story about it, and it was like amazing.
Yeah.
Because like, he'd get it for free, so he didn't have to have that cost. He just had to get it there.
Right.
And then he could like, sell it, but at a very, very minimal price so that people could afford the stuff. It's like Goodwill, when they can't have stuff that they can't sell in their stores in the US, they would, then take them to other countries where like maybe,
Right.
didn't have, or like they're a little bit more forgiving as far as like condition and stuff goes. So yeah.
There's lots of different ways, but yeah, it's kind of heartbreaking. And and it would be one thing if it's like one person doing that, but I just feel that people just aren't consciously aware of that.
Yeah.
And,
It's not the only time I saw that.
no, it's not. And it's really, really, it's too bad, so yeah, it's a case of thinking or educating yourself, or just maybe watching the video and going, there's other options for places to take stuff and what have you. I don't know how on earth did we've gone full circle.
I know.
And I got ricochet.
I know, it's true. Well, everything's connected, Kim.
It
Come
is.
on.
It's all connected. Yeah.
All of our videos are connected because we always seem to kind of talk about like similar things, like themes running through them. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. It's like it is all connected, and everything kind of ties into everything else. And
Yeah.
and really the idea is that really for me, where it talks about stop questioning your connection to the divine. Well, that's about listening to your higher self, your intuition and everything. But it's also like if you see the divinity in everything, because the divinity is present in everything. If you see the divinity in everything and you do not question your connection to the divine, then you realize that you are connected to everything and everyone. And every time that you do something to hurt somebody else, or to hurt an animal, to hurt a child, to hurt a tree, you are hurting yourself as well, even if you don't realize it at the moment. That's karma that's going to be weighing on you. So recognizing the divinity in everything also recognizes the divinity in yourself. And then also when you recognize that and see that connectedness, then the world is just a better place, and you see the beauty in everybody, even in the people that you don't necessarily like. You can still see the divine within them, and you can see that soul, and you can have that love for them, even if like their ego, their mouse, gets in the way of that. But you can still say, okay, but I still love you. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I still struggle with that with my mom. But sometimes I do better, sometimes not so great. But it's every day. Every day is a new day to work on this, and every day is a new day to recognize this within yourself and with everyone else, to see that divinity and the connectedness within us all.
Yeah. And to be kind to yourself, that if you're having a day where it's not going so great and it doesn't feel so good, that's okay too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, be kind and love yourself as well for right where you are. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I feel like that's a great place to stop.
I think it's, yeah, I think so too.
So, yeah, well, thank you everyone for sticking around, because apparently, like always, we get to the best parts at the end, I feel.
It all comes down. It all
comes
takes
together.
down to this really good spot.
Yeah, like the dude from the A-Team. I love it when a plan comes together. So, yes, thank you everyone for listening and watching and whatever. And please, all of our subscribers, thank you so much. And if you've liked this video, please hit like and subscribe below. And I think there's also a bell. I saw this on another YouTube video of these dudes I think it's called Sorted. It's like a cooking thing. I don't know. It's from England. Anyway, they're like, hit the bell. So, I don't know.
Oh, I guess I think
the social media maven. So,
well, I think that is to allow you to be notified when one of your favorite subscriptions puts out a new video, and it will let you know that it's now uploaded. Yeah. So I think that's what that's all about. I'm not 100% sure, so don't quote me, but I think that's what that is. Notification bell.
So, yeah. So if you did like it, please hit like and subscribe. And I get the bell's up to you. But please subscribe.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. And you have a lovely week, and see you next time.
Thank you, audience. See you next time. Bye.
Thanks for watching Kim and Angela talk. Please like and subscribe below. To book sessions with Kim, visit keycranio.com. To book sessions with Angela, visit thisreikilife.com. Thank you.